you just started running, or even if you've been running for a while, here are 5 of my most essential tips after a decade of running. Let's get into it. When I first started running, I did not prioritize stretching, mostly because I felt like it took too much time. And if I'm being honest, I still get lazy sometimes. But that led to quite a bit of pain and injury. So here are the 2 questions that you should be asking yourself. 1, when do you stretch? And 2, what type of stretches are you supposed to be doing? Let's start with when. You have to remember to stretch both before and after running. Now let's answer the second question. What stretches? Well, studies have found that dynamic stretches are what's most helpful before your run, so save static stretches for after your run. As for what specific stretches, I'd say try a couple things out and find what works for you, but here's what I do. I start with some high knees, and you can even add a twist to this if you'd like. Next, I do some quad stretches, and remember not to hold these for too long because these are supposed to be dynamic. Then I do some forward leg swings, followed by some lateral leg swings. And I finish with hip rotations, which look ridiculous, but they feel great. For cool down stretches, really this varies by the day and what I feel like focusing on, but I would dedicate time either at the end of your run or at the end of the day to focus on stretching, because not only does this minimize your risk of injury, but it just makes running also a whole lot more fun. Yeah, that wraps it up for stretches. Let's go inside and talk about shoes.
So I have flat feet, probably as flat as they come, but thankfully, this hasn't led to any issues when it comes to my running. It has, however, made me think more carefully about the shoes I choose. So let's talk about how you go about finding the right shoes for you. And the first thing I think about is foot pronation. And this is the way feet roll as they make contact with the ground. And there's 3 types of pronation. The first of which is neutral pronation. And this is where your feet roll slightly inward to evenly absorb the impact. And really, this is the ideal case. Then there's overpronation, where your feet roll excessively inward. And if you have flat feet like me, I'm sorry to break the news, but you probably overpronate. Finally, there's supination or underpronation, where your feet roll on the outer edge. If you're not sure what type of foot pronation you have, you can either get your feet scanned, or if you have an old pair of running shoes, just take a look at the sole of the shoe and see where you have the most amount of wear. As you can tell with these old pair of Vessies that I run with, most of the wear is on the inside edge, showing that I overpronate. For neutral pronation, you should have a wear pattern right down the middle, and for supination, the wear pattern should be on the outside edge. If you overpronate, you're gonna wanna invest in a pair of stability shoes that offer arch support, or you can also see your podiatrist for custom soles that you can then insert into a pair of neutral shoes. For neutral pronation, look for neutral support shoes, and for supination, look for cushion shoes. Now, of course, there's also these other factors that you're gonna wanna consider, and from my experience, it's certainly worth doing the research to find the right shoe for you so that you have the best experience when you go out there and run. All right, let's get on the treadmill and we'll talk about what good running form looks like.
Good form goes a long way, especially in running where it's all about efficiency. Now, of course, good is subjective, but there are still general principles that you're gonna wanna follow. Something you'll notice with professional runners is that they've each found what works for them. So what makes technically good posture? Well, I think about it in sections, starting with your head. You'll wanna keep your head in a neutral position, aligned with your spine. What you wanna avoid is tilting your head either too far forward or backward. Keep your jaw relaxed and just look far out in front of you. Then there's your shoulders. A bad habit that I had was tensing my shoulders, so instead just keep them relaxed. For your arms, you want to have them close by your side with your hands in a loose grip,
just avoid having them cross your midline, because this just expends more energy in rotation than actually pushing you forward. And with your legs, the biggest thing that you want to avoid here is what's known as overstriding, and this is where your foot lands in front of your knee. Doing this acts like a brake and introduces stress into your joints. Finally, let's talk about foot strike. Generally, you want to avoid heel striking, because not only can this be damaging to your knees, but it also increases contact time with the ground since your whole foot has to roll through. Instead, you want to aim for a midfoot strike, but that being said, you can still find many professionals who heel strike, which goes back to what I said in the beginning, which is that you've got to find what works for you. Okay, let's move on to tip 4. Let's talk breath work. So if you didn't know already, the whole purpose of breathing is to take in oxygen that's then delivered to your muscles.
Well, no fucking shit!
And if there's anything that you can do to increase the amount of oxygen that you intake, you should probably do that, because that would mean better performance. Now, it turns out that quite a number of us don't really know how to breathe, which sounds weird, but if I were to ask you to take in a deep breath, it probably looks like this. The problem with this is that you aren't using your diaphragm, and so you're not using your full lung capacity. These shallow breaths can leave you feeling tired faster. So instead, try this. Lie on the floor and take a deep breath in. But this time, allow the air to fill your belly and your lungs. Then, as you exhale, you should feel your belly deflate. At first, this is something that you're gonna have to remind yourself to do consciously, but then with time, it'll become second nature, and before you know it, you'll be breathing like a normal person again. So the final tip that I have for you is more of a philosophy for how I approach the sport of running, which has helped me maintain consistency. But for me, running is more than just stepping on a treadmill at a set time every day. I see it as a metaphor for the challenges of my life. And when I step out on a run, I recognize that I have these self-limiting beliefs. And pushing past the pain and proving these beliefs wrong is a declaration to myself that I'm in control, not just of my body, but also of the stories that I tell myself. And this feeling of accomplishment then carries over to every other aspect of my life. Anyways, I hope that you've taken something useful from this video. If you enjoy running, I'd love to hear some of your own tips in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.